Well, today, Geoff Banks is a youth pastor. 4 years ago, he was a heroin addict. Geoff's father, James, is also a pastor, and he and his wife never stopped praying for their prodigal son.
It started with smoking cigarettes in 5th grade. Then Geoff Banks started drinking, taking pills, and smoking pot. By the time he was 20, Geoff was addicted to opioids and in and out of jail and rehab.
It really became a nightmare, not just for me, but for my parents as well.
James and Carrie never stopped believing their son would turn his life around. Each day, James wrote prayers for Geoff and shares them in his book, Prayers for Prodigals.
All right, well, James and Geoff are with us live, and I've got to ask you, what went through your mind as Geoff is going through this? I mean, did you wonder, did I make a mistake? What happened? Was there trauma?
Oh, yeah.
All of that?
Yeah, you're always second-guessing yourself. You know, hindsight is 20/20, and you look back and you think, oh, if I had done this or that differently. And you think the worst, you know, when you're the parent of a prodigal, sometimes the phone rings in the middle of the night and you just, you know, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
And
the phone rang in the middle of the night.
And the phone did ring in the middle of the night, yeah.
And how did you deal with that?
You know, this was a situation that brought us to our knees. And I think that's the best place for us to be under the circumstances, you know. You do everything you can, and you run out of words, and you get prayed out, if you will, and you go into the Word of God, and that's what writing Prayers for Prodigals was about. Was just this cry from the heart, Lord, I can't fix this, and only You can. And so we just.
And that's a good prayer.
Yeah.
You give up trying yourself and say, God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm too small for this, but You can handle it. Geoff, I got to ask you, what started you down on the road?
Sure. I don't know. It's hard to like put, your finger on this was the moment that, I kind of started going down that path. It was
I don't
kind
think
of
anybody intends on being an addict.
Right. And
nobody says, yeah, that's what I really want to do.
Right. And you minimalize it all the way. It's always like, oh, this isn't that big a deal, or nobody really gets it. Or the other thing you do that I really did was I surrounded myself with people who did the same thing. Mm-hmm. So it was always, well, everybody's doing this. Like, what? It's not that big a deal, And then before you know it, you think you've gone a couple feet down the street and you look back and it's been miles, and you never realize how bad it's gotten until it's too late, essentially.
Well, as a preacher's kid, was that part of it? Were you trying to prove that you could be cool or you could be bad?
I really saw my relationship with God. It wasn't a relationship. It was a bunch of rules growing up. Like not that they made it that way, but that's just how I perceived it. As, oh, it was this rule and that rule, and I knew that I didn't want to do that. So I wanted to kind of be the cool kid and whatever else. So through looking for that acceptance and looking for that identity, I kind of just slowly went that way. So
what got you fast down that way? Because it's step by step, but then once you take the turn into opiates, then it starts to get real fast.
Yeah, so it started off with pain pills, and I don't even really think I knew what they were per se. I just knew I could get them, and I knew they made me feel good. And there was a point where doctors and law enforcement started to catch on that was a problem, and they changed the chemistry of these certain pills to make it so you couldn't abuse them. And at that point, I started doing heroin. And I think as soon as I used a needle for the first time, I was gone. Like, that was whenever it was like, this is all that I want to do and what I want to do, and nothing else. Like,
what consequences started for you?
Oh man, consequences started early on for me. It was legal trouble from 16 years old on, whether it was getting caught with marijuana at school or pills or everything else. So it was in and out of schools. By the time I got to college, it was in and out of jail. And I mean, I remember like first time getting arrested, I was 16 and charged as an adult. And I think that made me, going through that kind of hardened me a little bit.
Charged as an adult?
Yeah, so I got caught with a little bit of weed at school, and because it was on school campus, they charged me as an adult, and I went to Durham County Jail with all the adults and had to sit in there, and that really like kind of hardened me and reinforced me to be like, are you kidding me? And I think that played a role in kind of sending me off the deep end too.
So you just thought that was unjust?
Yeah, that was part of it, was feeling like it was unjust. I always felt like everyone was out to get me too. That was definitely another kind of symptom of my addiction, was I felt like everyone was coming after me, you know, so.
You had to have a moment here, a 16-year-old son, you're a pastor, and you're going, how in the world did this happen?
Yeah, how do we get here from there, you know? I mean, it's just one of those things that, you know, as a pastor, sometimes you realize that the devil goes after your family as well. And
not sometimes.
You know, my wife and I, man,
all the time.
Yeah, but I've been blessed with a wife who loves God and loves our kids fiercely. And you know, one of the lessons I learned through her was never give up. You know, keep loving, keep that relationship open. You know, and keep praying for them. And you know,
you got a son in Durham County Jail.
Yeah,
I assume he's spending.
Yeah, he's sitting
time.
there.
He's sitting there. What prayer are you praying?
You know, I can't even remember the exact words. It's just, you know, Lord, help. I think it comes down to that. Yeah. But, you know, Lord set him free. One of the amazing things that God did for my wife was when Geoff was going through all this, she still believed that one day God was going to use him in ministry. And I couldn't see it. You know, I was so far from that. But that was a gift that God gave to her. She just went to him with this. And I went to him, you know, just realizing that I had nowhere else to go. I couldn't fix it. You know, I'd preached so many sermons to Geoff.
It doesn't work.
It didn't work, you know. So,
yeah, he's got the full armor on. That's not going to get through. When your mom comes to you and says you're going to be in ministry, what's your reaction to that?
You know, that wasn't the only time I'd heard that either. Like, I'd been told that several times in my life. And,
what was the first time?
I don't even think I remember. There was ladies at church, and I've always kind of had this like outgoing personality. I think people saw that in me. But, you know, I don't know if it was even a mental like running away. I don't remember much of kind of that time period as well as I probably should, but for obvious reasons.
Yeah, it goes with the territory.
Yeah, and I think...
It's more like stepping into a river and getting swept away.
That's right.
But that's an important thing for parents to know, that child that they're looking at, you know, is in there somewhere. You know, that's what he's doing.
But no longer in control.
But no longer in control.
Yeah. And that was the biggest thing for me, is I never really like... It wasn't that I wanted to hurt my parents. It wasn't that I wanted to put anybody through this, you know. I just knew what I wanted to do, and I thought I was okay in it, you know. So whenever I heard stuff like that, like, you're going to be in ministry someday, I was like, yeah, okay. I always thought that I would someday, like, grow out of it, you know, that I would get to be, like, I don't know, 20-something years old, and I wouldn't want to do drugs anymore, and I would just kind of, you know, go get a job and be a normal person. I thought it was just a period, and I really thought that I'd grow out of it, but instead I grew into it, you know, so. And
then the compulsion takes over, and you can't get free.
Right.
But you got free. What was the turn for you?
Yeah, so I tried everything. I tried rehab after rehab after rehab. I sat in jail. I did all the stuff that kind of the world tells you to do. You know, it's the rehabs, the jail, the mental institution. I did all of it, probably 11, 12 times, in and out, in and out, in and out. And kind of what was the turning point for me was Jesus and the change in identity that he gives us. Because I went through all this recovery having to say, I'm Geoff and I'm an addict, I'm Geoff and I'm an alcoholic. And whenever Jesus stepped in, it wasn't, you're Geoff and you're an addict, you're Geoff and you're an alcoholic, but you're Geoff and you're forgiven and you're perfect, you know, and I've made you perfect. And realizing that identity was the change point for me, because I found freedom there, you know. It wasn't...
Well, how did you get to that? Because I think a lot of people in America, you know, the newspaper is full of reports of the addiction problem we currently have are going, how did you get free?
By no merit of my own, you know. So I think I look at the way that you guys loved me, like the way that my parents and the people around me loved me was unconditional, right? Even whenever I was in it.
You had an encounter.
Sure. Oh, yeah. So I got in probably the turning point that I think you're referring to, I got in a car wreck that was pretty bad, and at that point I went back to treatment, and my parents had given me a book, and it was like a God's promise book, and I read this verse in Isaiah 43:2, And it's when you walk through the waters, I'll be with you, and they will not overwhelm you. And it goes on from there. And kind of in that moment, I felt God speaking to me. Being, you know, it wasn't like God speaking to the Israelites, but he was speaking to me. And he's like, I'm with you in all this. Like in all the bad stuff that you're going through and all the troubles that you're going through, I'm right here, you know. And that wasn't the freedom point for me, but it was the start of it.
You had a struggle getting free.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
had this start. You have a spiritual encounter, and suddenly God's real to you.
Yeah.
And he's not a rule anymore.
Right.
He's a loving.
Yeah, and you hear all these stories of these light bulb moments, you know, and I think everybody wants that. And I wish I would have had that. It would have been awesome, you know, where, you know, God comes in a shining light, and from that moment forth, you're free. But for me, it was, you know,
Even with the light bulb moment, it's still a struggle.
Right. So I realized
It's
God,
day to day.
Yeah, and then it was this day-to-day struggle towards him, you know, and I think that's what life looks like for everybody, you know. It's kind of this slow, like, walk that God is pulling us out of it.
But you got to a point, after the revelation, after the struggle, you got to a point where you finally realized you're a new creation. And you don't have to self-identify anymore as an addict, as an alcoholic, that you're really free. Who the Son has set free is free indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
When did that happen for you?
I think it was another one of those things where it wasn't this moment. What are you?
I want to jump in there because Geoff got to a place where he was really, you know, really struggling, and his mom and I came and got him and said, you know, we want you to go to this place, Christian Recovery Home. And he went there, and before he went, he said, I'm not going to Jesus camp, you know. But while he was there, he got in with
Still rebelling.
Yeah, still rebelling, but he went, and he got in with a community of people who loved him right where he was. And you know, he saw the Lord's love and presence somehow in and through that. They didn't give up. You know, you think about it, Jesus was a friend of sinners.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's
known for it.
That's the thing, you know, that
Famous for it.
He met Geoff in that place. And, you know, as for us, I mean, it was such an incredible answer to prayer because, you know, I thought that maybe years down the line I'd see something, but then this is really immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. I mean, what God ended up doing was just breathtaking.
Yes, he is a breathtaking God. We can talk for a long time. I know if you're interested, we've got Facebook Live with Jim and Geoff, and I know a lot of families are struggling with addiction. And what do you do with a child? What do you do with a parent who's addicted? How do you pray for them? And James has a book. It's called Prayers for Prodigals. It's available wherever books are sold. And you can also, we're going to have that web-exclusive interview with James and Geoff, and we're going to have more on 700 Club Interactive on Monday morning. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your story.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We're going to get more.
Thank you so much.